Whoa, everybody chill the fuck out, man. Okay, look. If I put the helmet back on, will everybody just calm the fuck down? Damn, you take a helmet off and everybody just loses their fucking minds. I'm sick of this shit. Fuck this thing. Doom Guy doesn't have to deal with this shit. Halo, Episode 2, Unbound, is brought to us by director Otto Bathurst and stars Pablo Schreiber, Urin High, and Bokeem Woodbine. John takes Quan to an old friend and learns more about the mystery object, which the Covenant and Mackie are determined to steal. So before we get started, I wanted to let you know up front and in advance that this review is going to contain spoilers. If you're wondering about my spoiler-free reviews about the Halo show as a whole, then check out my Episode 1 review where I don't spoil anything. But if you're checking out an Episode 2 review, I assume that you've already either watched the episode or you're watching the show, or you're at least going to. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to sit here and just try and stay spoiler free in this thing. So yeah, I'm gonna be talking about specific story beats about this episode, and I'm gonna spoil the shit out of this motherfucker, and that's what I'm gonna do moving forward with this series. So if you haven't watched this episode and you don't want any spoilers, then turn this off right now, go watch the show, and hopefully come back to hear my thoughts. Now, even though I am gonna talk about spoilers, I'm not gonna recap the whole episode. I'm gonna talk about some stuff that stood out to me and give a general review and how I thought about the episode. So episode 2 picks up right where episode 1 left off, where John has decided to go AWOL and save Quan, the girl that he saved in the first episode that the UNSC said to kill. After touching the mysterious artifact, he gets memories of his past and he reclaims a bit of his humanity and decides, you know what, I don't feel like it's right to kill this girl. I'm gonna go against everything I know and take her away and keep her safe. They go to this mysterious shattered pirate planet that's like held together by a bunch of mechanical straps, and it's run by John's old Spartan friend Soren, who was a defector back when they were younger. While here, John seeks out information about the artifact that he took from the first episode, and there's apparently a collection of people that Soren has with him that have been over the years captured by the Covenant and tortured into insanity, and these people might know something about the artifact. Turns out one of them does, and he gives us a little bit more information about John being one of the chosen ones, and he's the reason that when other people touch it, it doesn't do shit, but when he touches this thing, it like activates it, and all kinds of crazy shit happens. We also learned that that is apparently what the female human character that's working with the Covenant is too. And this crazy guy that gives them this information explains that this artifact will lead them to a weapon, and John freaks the fuck out, rightfully so, and says, you know what, I've seen what type of weapons the Covenant has. The weaponry they have at their disposal is powerful enough to glass entire planets, so if they're hunting this weapon down, that means it must be insanely powerful. And he makes the decision to leave Quan there under Soren's protection and go back to the UNSC because the only person he knows he can trust and can help him with this would be Dr. Halsey. And given her reputation in the series that inspired this series, that probably wasn't a great idea. So he returns, he gets put in shackles, and that's where the episode ends. Oh yeah, also we get mention of Cortana. Apparently this time around, Cortana is kind of like part human, part AI or something like that. We don't get a full explanation at this point. But the Cortana project has been now greenlit because Halsey manipulated this situation, pissing off the Admiral in the process, but she did it in such a way that the Admiral can't really do shit about it. And we also learned that that female character within that egg type of thing from episode 1, that is in fact Cortana, or at least what will lead to the AI Cortana. So this episode was much different than the first episode. The first episode was like half action and then half story. This one is pretty much all story and setup. There's very little action in this episode, and by very little I mean absolutely none. And I can understand that that will be off-putting to some. You come into a Halo show expecting to see some action, and admittedly, while I did like this episode and I like the story building and the lore and everything that they're setting up, I would have liked to have at least seen one small action scene. However, after the show is all said and done and we have the entire run where you can watch them back to back to back, I don't think it'll be as much of an issue. We go into the next episode and we get get some cool action, I think that that'll make up for it. Now, if we don't get any type of kick-ass action in the next episode, I'm gonna say to myself, you know, that was a bit of a lull. You know, you could have spiced things up a bit. And at this point, watching the show week to week, it did leave me wanting a bit more. Now, by no means does that mean I disliked the episode. It just wasn't as exciting as the first one. But hey, like I mentioned in my episode 1 review, Halo is not all about the action. It's very much about the story, the backstory, the lore, all that stuff. And they do double down on that here, and what we get is pretty cool. There are a lot of things in this episode that are very familiar to fans of the Halo universe leading up to this point, but there also are enough things that they've tweaked and changed just a bit to make it a bit exciting. And I know that that has been a point of contention for some of the viewers of this show, and don't worry, we'll get to that in just a minute, but I need to touch on something else, and then we'll talk about all the shit that people have had to say about this show after that. Overall, this was a slower episode, but it was a necessary episode. We needed the events that took place in this episode to propel the story forward. Do I think that they could have added in a bit of excitement here or there? Sure they could have, but as it stands, I did still enjoy this episode. We got a lot of juicy info. Long story short, even though we do get a whole lot of information that moves the story forward in this episode, there's not a tremendous amount to talk about. I do think that this episode is well worth checking out, and I am still very excited to see what happens in this series moving forward. So yeah, episode 2 of Halo, absolutely go check it out, but no, going in, it's not gonna be as exciting, not as much action, but you are gonna get a whole lot of story this time around. Now, let's talk about a few of those spoilers and some of that stuff that I've been reading and hearing from other people out there in the community that they haven't really been liking so much about this show. First things first, the changes. Some of the changes they've made to some of the characters, some of the changes that they've made to the overall story and the timelines and stuff like that. Yes, there are changes here, and if it spoils the experience for you that much, okay, that's fine, I get it. This isn't gonna be for everybody, like anything. However, if you can go into this understanding that it is an adaptation, much like any movie or TV show of a known property, and just go in with an open mind, I think you can have a good time with it. I myself am okay with them changing some things, because I feel like they keep enough of it within that Halo universe. They keep enough of it pure, and they keep the spirit of Halo. So far, at least. I know the Halo lore, the stories, all that stuff very well. I don't particularly want to see it all over again. I would like to see something that keeps me on my toes a bit. This is a new, different medium. It is okay for them to put their own spin on it a bit, as long as they retain the spirit. And I do truly believe that they've retained not only the spirit, but a lot of that Halo universe within this show. If you want to disagree with me, that's fine. I'm not here to persuade you any differently. I'm just telling you how I feel about it. At the end of the day, watch what you want to watch, like what you want to like, but let me and other people that enjoy the show do the same. Now, another part of this show that a lot of people have given it shit over would be the helmet. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this particular part of this universe and this show. Yes, Master Chief takes his helmet off closer to the end of episode 1. And yes, this rubbed a lot of people wrong. And part of me does understand why. Master Chief has never really taken his helmet off within the Halo universe, at least not in the games, not somewhere we can see it. We've seen like his eyes, his mouth, just bits and pieces of his face. But we've never just totally seen him totally unmasked and seen the man behind the mask. And the reason for that in the games is because you, the player, was supposed to embody Master Chief. That's not just me coming up with that and pulling it out of my ass. That comes straight from Bungie, the creators of Halo and the Master Chief. And that does make sense, I get it, but over the 20 plus years that the Master Chief and the Halo series has been a thing, this character in this world has grown so much. And when we come into a more cinematic telling of this character, I do get why they took the helmet off. Yes, it is easier to tell a story when you can read a human being's face, and we do want to see the human behind the cybernetic mask. Now, devil's advocate for a minute, that does not mean you necessarily have to take off the mask. Look at something like The Mandalorian or Judge Dredd. Both of these two examples worked extremely well, never or barely ever taking the mask off. And while Judge Dredd, you can see half of his face, so that's a little bit of a cop-out, and The Mandalorian, yes, he did take his mask off at least once in the show. These two do prove that it can be done, and it can be done very well. Do I think they could have left the Master Chief's helmet on the majority of the time and it would have worked? Absolutely they could have. They could have used body language. Look at something like The Mandalorian especially. They could have taken cues from that show and it absolutely could have worked. However, on the flip side of that, do I really have a problem with them taking the Chief's helmet off and showing the guy behind the mask? No, I fucking don't. Not in a TV show at least. It doesn't bother me at all. Honestly, 5 or 10 years ago, fans were clamoring for this non-stop. Everybody wanted to see the Chief's face. face. But now that a new medium decides to do it, everybody's losing their fucking minds about it. I don't really get it. It kind of shows that you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's not a right way they could have done this. How they did it in episode 1, I was totally fine with. Now, that does bring us to episode 2. The Chief spends the vast majority of this episode with his helmet off. And I do wish they had put the helmet back on him a bit. I don't mind seeing his face some. I don't even mind seeing his face each episode a bit. But I feel as if this character would feel at home, feel comfortable with the helmet on. So when he takes it off, I feel as if he should be a bit uncomfortable. So the fact that he does walk around the vast majority of this episode unmasked, I think they were missing something really interesting there. Master Chief not being able to let go of his UNSC background is a big part of this episode, so I wish they would have played into him not wanting to take that helmet off, not wanting to break out of that comfort zone more. I don't mind that he shows his face in the show, I just wish he didn't show his face quite as much. Does it ruin the show? No, but I do think it could have added an extra layer of depth had they left it on a bit more. I don't really give a fuck what the people that make this show, how they feel, what they think about politics or the real world. I just want to see them make a good show. And up to this point, in my opinion, they have made a good show. I'm on board with it. Now, I don't want all that shit to invade the show. I don't like when real world shit gets involved with my fantasy entertainment. Some people are saying that it's woke, it's this, it's that, and believe me, I'm the first one to call that shit out. I don't like all that shit muddying up my entertainment, but at this point, I don't see it having done so. And hopefully, it won't moving forward, but I'm not gonna hold what people believe and think and say against the show itself. I love this universe, and I really enjoy this show up to this point, and I hope with all my heart of hearts that they move forward positively. Because as long as they can do that, I will be on board. I'm okay with some changes. I'm okay with seeing the Chief. Just keep that spirit of Halo alive within this show. That, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the Flood. So there it is, guys, my thoughts on episode 2 of Halo, the series. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below, become a jar and get some of the awesome benefits that go along with that, like these guys. And possibly join my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Dragon Khan and Marge G. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Beta Ring.
Silver Team, on me.
So while we've gotten like a whole lot of violence and language and all kinds of stuff within the Halo universe and this show so far, closer to the end of this episode, we get what I think is the first instance of TNA in the Halo universe. And okay, I see what you're doing there, Halo. We get our Human Covenant character right there at the end of the episode disrobing slowly, and we get a little bit of a titillizing side boob. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's boobs. Everybody knows boobs make everything better.